Hey everybody, and welcome back to FSi DFS. I'm McKinley412. Hope you're having a fantastic week as we head into the weekend here. This slate, it's very dominated by the bats. Pitching is not great. We'll just say that, not great. So don't focus too much on pitching. Don't get too caught up on like one particular guy. It's definitely going to be a higher scoring slate with the bats and targeting some very solid offenses and very solid positions. But we'll just go through the pitchers here regardless. We're not going to go through every single one. I do have the sheet. We'll get to that. But Joe Ryan up at the top, he's going to be your number one. Going up against the Angels, a little bit tougher matchup, but he's been by far the most consistent guy throughout the course of the season. He's got a great strikeout rate, low hard contact rate, just like everything that you could ask for. You kind of got with Ryan here outside of, a toughish matchup going up against the Angels. So 10.3K, given everything else that's on the slate, I think that, I'm going to be playing him, especially, in cash games. Alcantara going up against San Francisco. We've talked about Alcantara in the past, he's a guy who he's a better real life pitcher than he is a DFS pitcher. And it kind of remains to be the same this season. Even though real life pitching, he hasn't been too great. He's got an ERA close to 5 so far. But still, he's a workhorse. He goes super deep into the game. So, the opportunity is there when you're getting 7, maybe even 8 innings every game. He's just a super efficient pitcher in terms of that. So, nice matchup, nice ballpark boost. But I do think I would rather just go up the 500 to Ryan. But at the same time, pivoting to guys below him, I'm not really thrilled about that either. It's going to be kind of what this whole slate's about. It's just kind of meh pitching. You're going to be talking a lot more about the bats. Miller, he's been lights out in his 3 starts, but he's got a much, much tougher matchup going up against on the road at Atlanta. He's faced Detroit, he's faced Oakland, and he's faced a Houston team that, the bottom of that order is pretty weak, and overall as an offense, they're not what we've seen in years past. Still, he's a top-end prospect. He could be there. He could get there. But still, the strikeouts the past 2 starts have not been there, and that's not what you want going up against Atlanta and the offense that they're capable of. So Miller, he's fine. If you want to go to him, okay. I'm not saying he's a bad play by any means. It's just that, nobody just seems like a stud lock or a stud play on the slate in terms of the pitching side. Elder, kind of the same thing. Gonsolin, he's had 2 solid starts recently, but man, I don't know. I just don't trust it. St. Louis bats seem to have kind of opened up as well. So just kind of like where I rank the high tier there, it pretty much just goes salary on down. I think the salaries are kind of where they should be. Ryan's your top option. Alcantara, maybe Elder over Miller. Mainly due to the matchup and everything, and then Gonsolin right on behind them. After that, I just noticed I don't have Stroman on here. I knew I was missing one guy. I was counting, couldn't figure it out who it was. It's Stroman. No, he's right here. I'm missing some pitcher, and I don't know who it is. But Stroman, I have him ranked kind of far down in that mid-tier order, or in that mid-tier salary, just because he got a brutal matchup going up against Philly. Now, Stroman has done better so far this season than he has in years past. But he's got a tough matchup against Philadelphia. 8.8K. I'd rather go, when I'm not super thrilled with pitching on the slate, I'd rather kind of go a little bit cheaper. Obviously, I'm going to go Ryan, pay up for a guy, but I'm not going to be paying 8.8 for a guy in a very difficult matchup. I'd look for a guy in a much easier matchup, a guy like DeSclafani for San Francisco. Great, he's definite better ballpark to be pitching in rather than in Philadelphia. And he's going up against Miami. Miami, we know they put Jazz Chisholm on the IL, so he's out. And the rest of the Miami bats just don't scare me. They shouldn't scare you too much either. DeSclafani, he's been kind of up and down all season long. You can see the ups here, you can see the downs here. But I do think that the matchup, the ballpark, just everything considered, the injuries to the Miami top bats, DeSclafani is going to be my favorite pitcher in this mid-tier. Snell, he's a big boomer bust guy. Kind of always has been a big boomer bust guy. You're kind of flipping the coin. High ceiling, very low floor. Carrasco, he's on a pitch count. Don't have any interest in him. Paxton, he had a great start in his return from rehab, but his rehab starts in the minor leagues were downright disastrous. So I'm not going to let one start kind of scare me off of him. So tough matchup going up against San Diego. I think he's kind of a fade for me. Detmers, we're looking for that strikeout upside. Going up against Minnesota, they can't strike out quite a bit. So I do think that Detmers is right behind DeSclafani, and those two guys are going to be my favorite in the mid-tier. Snell, just for the ceiling. Everybody else is just kind of leftover scraps at that point. In the cheap tier, Bialik and Boyd. With both of these guys, we're searching for strikeouts, and we're searching for easier matchups. Boyd going up against Washington, Bialik going up against Oakland. They both can generate some strikeout upside. They both limit hard contact, and they're both in solid matchups. So while the DFS points don't come in troves per se for these guys, I still think that given the pitching slate, given the people around them, given the matchups, all that considered, I do think that those two are like my favorite cheap plays. It's ugly. I feel like I just went through the pitching and just gave you nothing. Because, that's pretty much what it is. But, Ryan's your most consistent guy. Alcantara, he's been very iffy this season. But, compared to everybody else, he's a fine pitcher. And a nice matchup in San Francisco. DeSclafani, Detmers, you're looking for the strikeouts. They're in nice ballparks. They're in nice matchups. And then same thing with Bialik and Boyd. They're cheap. There is a possibility of some strikeout upside, but they're also in very nice matchups going up against Washington and Oakland. So this slate is definitely determined by the bats. Texas, they're probably going to be my favorite stack on the entire slate. I know they don't have, I looked at the implied run totals. They don't have their highest implied run total, but they're going up against Kaufman for Colorado. It could be a bullpen game for Colorado, too, because I don't expect Kaufman to last too long. Kaufman has disastrous numbers in the minor leagues, and Texas, well, their bats are doing very, very well. And then you add in that they got Corey Seager back in this past week, going to have a lot of interest in them. So guys you really can't go wrong. Semien smashes the ball. Garcia, he has been hitting the ball very well this past week. Corey Seager, we would know what he can do. Low, 4.2K, very affordable first baseman in the nice lefty-righty matchup. Jonah Heim, love Jonah Heim. Sub 4K, great. Takes up a nice catcher position for a very affordable. And pitching, you're not going to be paying up top dollar for pitching on this slate. So salary is not going to be too much of an issue. I do think that Texas is my favorite stack on the entire slate. And again, you really can't go wrong with pretty much anybody there. But I think Garcia, Lowe, Heim, Seager, Lowe, Heim would be my top four. And then Semien right there. But if you want to put Semien in there, sure. Big 5-man stack. Love it. Love Texas on the slate. Houston, they do have the highest implied run total on the entire slate. I think it's 6 or close to over 6 going up against Waldichuk and then going up against that Oakland bullpen. Alvarez and Tucker, those are your two big bats for these guys. Both lefty-lefty matchups, but I'm not too concerned about it because I don't think Waldichuk's going to go super deep into the game, and then you're getting into the bullpen. So don't pay attention too much into the pitch hand, the bats, all that kind of stuff for this one. But Houston, I do think they're a top stack for sure, just given the matchup, given everything. But, they can't strike out quite a bit. They're just kind of a frustrating team overall, especially in the bottom of the order, but they are very, very affordable. The big thing here is Jose Abreu, who doesn't have a single home run so far this season. 42 games played, no home runs. Boy, what a fall he has been lately. San Diego, Baltimore. San Diego is going up against Paxton. I just talked about how Paxton was a disaster zone in his rehab starts in the minor leagues. He hasn't pitched in the past 2 years, but then first start back in the majors, did fine, but I'm not going to let one game scare me away. I do think that San Diego is a top-tier offense on this slate. And then Baltimore. Baltimore's going up against Toronto, going up against Kikuchi. I just don't trust Kikuchi. He gets blown up a lot. As you can see, he has some serious home run issues. And Baltimore has a lot of home run power, especially home run power from the right side of the plate, which Kikuchi struggles against. So it's going to be guys like Mountcastle and Santander and Rushman. It's your usual guys for Baltimore that you're going to be paying attention to. They're pricey, which kind of bumps them down a little bit, but I still think that the home run upside is there. And even if you want to put them over in like a great GPP play, you can definitely do that. Speaking of GPP plays, Boston going up against Snell, big boom bust guy. Boston, their past 2 games, 12 runs, 9 runs. The offense is clicking. I know they didn't do too well in the games before that, but still, maybe they got something going here. They're seeing the ball well, and Snell, he can certainly blow up from time to time. So I do think that Boston's a very intriguing GPP play. Atlanta, I think, is also a very intriguing GPP play. Facing up against Miller, maybe Miller gets some ownership because, top prospect, his first 3 games in the majors have all been fantastic. But again, Atlanta is a different offense than the offenses that he faced in Detroit and in Oakland. And even like the Houston, we talked about their bats and everything. So I do think that Atlanta can certainly be an intriguing GPP play. They got an upside every single night, regardless of the matchup that they're in. And like I said, their salary is not going to be too much of an issue. So you can jam in their top bats kind of without issue. Mets, Toronto, Mets and Toronto. They got high. The reason for this was very high implied run totals. And that was pretty much it. But I do think they're going to go under the radar. But under the radar, high implied run total, kind of nice mix for a GPP play. Cheap guys, Detroit, Kansas City, San Francisco. I just realized I got San Francisco here twice. San Francisco, I do think can be intriguing going up against Alcantara. Like I said, he's a great pitcher, but he's really struggled so far this season. So maybe that they can be in play. They don't have Jock Peterson. He just went on the IL, which is definitely a bummer. But yeah, maybe if you want to go there for some one-offs, I mean, they're very affordable. They can be a great one-off plays if you're looking for some value. But this is kind of where the slate is. It's awful for pitching. Bats are going to be reigning supreme. I'm going to have a lot of exposure to Texas. They're going to be my number 1 team for exposure. Houston, highest implied run total on the slate. I do think that they're going to do very well. And then San Diego, Baltimore, even Chicago, going up against Suarez. I don't have any interest in Suarez at all. So I do think that Chicago in that small ballpark could do some damage too. So thanks for watching. I mean, that kind of covers the slate. It's pretty ugly, all things considered. But yeah, hopefully you guys can navigate it. Hopefully it doesn't burn you too much. So as always, thanks for watching. Good luck in your contests. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll see you tomorrow.